commence.
Thank you very much for your talk. You mentioned a few times, if I got it right, that you have to fight alternative facts with rationalism or science. We face in the zoo world, at least where we are in, if we are talking to politicians, that they try to break down facts into a kind of doing something in between, what they really like to do, but it is opposing the facts, and they like to make, they like to find a break even between something where there is no break even. How do you deal with this kind of problem when you talk to the decision makers?
Without to be violent, I suspect. Yes, no, there is no way. We have to convince people. We have to convince politicians. And when we have decided to write those manifesto in Paris, it's to reach the media, and beyond the media to reach the politicians. Because in terms of actions, I think that we have 3 levels of actions at the museum. We have the citizens. This is the consciousness of every one of us. Those are the citizens. We have to reach the political level, the politicians, and try to convince them. Maybe it's very hard, I don't know. But in between, we have also the companies. Companies is the place where you have the money, where you have some power, where you have a capacity of reaction. And I work very hard to be on the field of companies, to be out of my zone of comfort, and to go on the field of great banks, great oil companies, people that are not, that was before considered by scientists as, no, I cannot speak to those guys because they are not correct. But I think that we need them now in the game. And they start to be sensitive to that. And if you reach them, to reach great companies, you also reach politicians, people. But you cannot convince, back to your question, the core of your question, you cannot convince people if they would like to be convinced. It's almost impossible. So that's a relatively negative answer, but I am sorry, I have no solution, I have no recipe for that.
Do you have some contact with this institution, Mainalapat, that we have here an academician, Pierre Lenat, that followed this education of sciences?
Yes, we have some contact with them. I know very well one of the former president of Mainalapat, who is died now, unfortunately, Jacques Weber. But we have also contact with all these, we have a contact with a lot of NGO organizations at the museum. Yes, of course, it's exactly the way we have to do the things, to try to inject science and natural science at the most basic level. And I think that schools are really the right place, because children are future citizens. And we have to push back objects of natural history, for example, in the classrooms. They have no more skeleton of cats or birds in a classroom, because it's probably too dangerous now. I don't know why. But so the young children are far away with natural history objects, and I think that you cannot understand without looking at real objects. Reality is important, because we are also facing a numeric challenge, and everybody is on his screen and so on, and it's just unplugged from the reality of things. And I am deeply convinced that we have to push for natural history objects in the classrooms, in front of the children, whatever the means we use to do that.
In the United States, we have historically had a greater trust of science than in European countries. It's being rather shattered now by the administration, which is, like all too many countries in the world, turning completely nationalistic and exploitative. But when it comes to the matter of biodiversity, what we need in the United States most is a solid argument for why people ought to care about the loss of biodiversity. about 2/3 of the people in the U.S. of all political parties understand that global change is a serious problem and want something done about it, again, contrary to our expletive deleted administration. But we need a good argument for why people ought to care about the loss of biodiversity. The jolting ICSEB UN report that just came out, which you have copied on the table thanks to Johannes, stating that 1 million species are going extinct in the next 3 decades or so, puts an urgency on it and may be part of the answer. But when people in general, when people come to understand that 90% of those are undescribed scientifically and are small organisms and all, they tend to lose interest. So I would simply urge all of the natural history museums and the associations connected with them, keep thinking about how to concisely state why anybody should care about any of this. Natural history education is of extreme importance, and we'll all carry it out in our own ways and try to create literate people. But with so many species becoming extinct so rapidly, urgent arguments about the need are very, very important, and I hope we can all try to develop them. And I would love to have any communications, if any thoughts on that.
I will try to answer shortly to your question. I think that one of the first arguments is a very selfish argument. It's because we need biodiversity, because we are nothing without biodiversity. I can give you plenty of examples of very stupid small plants or animal. From that you can have incredible molecules to take care of your cancer or for big disease, for example. And you spoke about Alzheimer's disease, it's another example. I think also that because we are human beings with a large brain, I think that we have also to take care of biodiversity just because it's beautiful. It's important. And for me, the last and probably for me the most important reason, but maybe not for many American citizens, is an ethical reason. An ethic reason. It's because we have a huge diversity of life on Earth. This is the result of a very long evolutionary history. And how can we have the right to destroy this that took such a long time to be built? So I think that even for ethical reasons, we cannot destroy biodiversity. But back to the first reasons, to convince people, you have just to tell them that they are nothing without biodiversity. We just need biodiversity. We have 2 kilograms of bacteria inside our body, and we are nothing without those bacteria. Try to destroy them, you will see what will happen.
Yeah, those last sentences were good. I should have made it clearer probably that all of the general arguments that we all make have been made continuously to everybody in the United States for decades with little or no effect. And what we need seemingly is a very short and concise way of stating it. And I do very much appreciate the phrase, "we are nothing without biodiversity." That is certainly a catchy, the kind of thing we need. That's what I mean. The longer arguments are very well documented, but they haven't really persuaded people, at least in our country, that we were facing a crisis or that we should care.